So, have you ever looked at a country like Pakistan, a place with just immense potential, and wondered why it seems to be trapped in this near constant state of crisis? Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that. We're looking at the core arguments from Ishrat Husain's book, Governing the Ungovernable, to try and get to the bottom of this powerful, self-reinforcing cycle that's really at the heart of Pakistan's challenges. Now, that's a pretty stark image, isn't it? For a lot of us, it's probably the one we see in the headlines all the time. But is that really the whole story? I mean, come on. This quote really sets the stage for us because it forces us to look past the surface and ask a much deeper question. What are the real forces at play here shaping Pakistan's destiny? And that question leads us straight into the central puzzle of Pakistan's entire story. It's this deep, fascinating paradox. You see, to really understand the struggles of today, we actually have to take a trip back in time, back to the incredible promise of its past. I mean, just look at this contrast. It's startling, right? Back in the 1960s, Pakistan wasn't just doing okay. It was hailed as a model developing country. Think about that. It was building entire industries from the ground up, feeding its own people, and creating institutions that other countries were actually trying to copy. Now, fast forward to today, and the picture is completely different. We're talking chronic instability, falling behind neighbors like India and Bangladesh. So the big question is, what on earth happened? Okay, and if you think that's confusing, the paradox gets even deeper when you look at the actual data. On paper, you can't deny there's been real progress. I mean, an explosion in phone connections, literacy rates are up, more doctors for every person. For millions of people, life has gotten materially better. But here's the kicker. All that progress hasn't translated into stable, effective governance. And that is the core mystery the book really tries to solve. So the book argues that this isn't just a string of bad luck or a series of unfortunate events. Nope. It says there's a very specific engine driving this whole cycle of crisis, and it's a concept called elite capture. So let's break down exactly what that is. So, what is elite capture? Well, imagine the state itself being, for all intents and purposes, hijacked by a small, very powerful group of people. And this group, they don't just influence the system, they control it. They literally bend the rules of the economy, of the government, all to benefit themselves, not the public. It's a system rigged from the inside. Now, in the real world, this doesn't look like some big, shadowy conspiracy. It's way more ordinary, but just as damaging. It's 1,000 little cuts that corrode the system from the inside. We're talking about putting your buddies in key jobs, using your connections to grab state land for a steal, or rigging markets so no one else can compete. The whole game becomes about extracting wealth, what economists call seeking rents, for just a few people, instead of creating real value for everybody. It's about who you know, not what you can build. And, well, the result of all this is pretty much inevitable. You get institutional decay. The very organizations that are supposed to serve the people, the courts, the civil service, the police, they get hollowed out from the inside. They stop being pillars of the state and instead become tools for the elite. This timeline really lays it all out. You can see a clear pattern emerge over the decades. Right from the get-go, you had so much political instability that strong institutions never really had a chance to grow roots. Then in the 70s, widespread nationalization basically pitted the state against private businesses. The 90s, a complete revolving door of governments. And more recently, it's been all about putting loyalists in top jobs instead of the best person, which has just paralyzed everything. Let's be honest, that's not exactly fertile ground for strong, independent institutions. And this is where it gets really, really dangerous. See, when the state's institutions can't provide basic things people need, like justice or even just safety, people don't just throw their hands up and give up. No, they start looking for alternatives. And that power vacuum, it creates a huge opening for non-state actors, even extremist groups, to step right in and say, hey, we'll provide what the state can't. Okay, so this rot in the institutions, it's not just an abstract political problem. It comes with a very real and very, very high economic price tag. It's what creates this super volatile economic landscape, one that's not defined by steady, predictable growth, but by a really painful cycle of boom and bust. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The economy's rocky performance isn't some separate issue. It's a direct result of all these political problems we've been talking about. I mean, think about it. When institutions are weak and policies can change overnight, who's going to make the big, long-term investments you need for real sustained growth? Nobody. There's just no confidence. And if you want to see the proof in the pudding, just look at these numbers. They paint a really stark picture. We're talking about a 20-year average here. Political stability, way down at the bottom. And government effectiveness and controlling corruption, both in the bottom third of all countries worldwide. That's not just a bad report card. That's basically the statistical fingerprint of a captured, decaying state. And if you want to see what that cost looks like in polled hard cash, just look at this number. 100 billion rupees. That's the estimated loss from just one state-owned company, Pakistan Steel Mills, after its reforms got totally derailed by infighting between institutions. That's the kind of massive economic bleeding that happens when governance fails. So all of this brings us to the really big question, right? Can this vicious cycle actually be broken? And the book is super clear on this. We're not talking about some simple technical quick fix. This is about trying to overcome a system that is deeply, deeply entrenched. And here's why it's so incredibly difficult. You've got three major roadblocks. First, the very people who are benefiting from this broken system, they're the ones in power, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to stop any real change. Second, elected governments are always thinking about the next election, and deep reforms are often painful up front, even if they pay off later. And third, an authoritarian ruler might be able to force some changes through, but they almost never stick because there's no real public support. It's a true political catch-22. But look, the book doesn't just leave us in despair. It does lay out a potential path forward. It's built on these huge, fundamental reforms that are all connected. Things like cleaning up the electoral process so it's actually fair, building a modern civil service based on merit, not connections. And this one is huge. Making sure the judiciary is independent and powerful enough to hold everyone to account. Now, it's a tough road for sure, but the point is, a road does exist. So let's just recap the core idea here. Pakistan's challenges aren't random, and they're not just bad luck. According to this analysis, they are the predictable result of a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle. You have elite capture, which causes institutions to decay. That decay leads to political instability, and that instability is what allows the elite capture to continue. It just feeds on itself. And that leaves us with a final, really challenging thought to chew on. When a whole system is basically designed to benefit a powerful few, it is incredibly resistant to change. So the ultimate question, not just for Pakistan, but for a lot of countries, is this. What does it truly take to change it? What's the spark? Is it leadership? Is it public pressure? Is it political will? What's the thing that's finally powerful enough to break that cycle for good?